As the night went on, he started getting more and more annoyed about the boy that I'd been seeing after we'd broken up. I think at that point he just must have seen red, and he grabbed me and like just pushed me down to the floor. And I remember he was on top of me and he just had his hands on my neck, strangling me. And I remember I just felt so like violated. Like, I just felt it was horrible. And then he said, "Why are you crying?" And I was just like, "Well, you've hurt me. You scare me." And he was just like, "It's your fault." Before I met my ex-boyfriend, life was really fun. My friends would describe me as like the one with the sparkle, if that makes sense. Like, I just wasn't bothered about anything. I was just happy, content. Even though I was a mum, I had no problems. Me and my daughter's dad had split up when she was about 1. I was just being a mum, but also being young at the same time. My friends were over all the time. My flat was always the place to be. I would always have like my friends with me. Marley, I grew up calling them aunties. Like we are all so close. So we just spent every day, every weekend, everyone all together. I've always been like a big dreamer, I'd say. I've always wanted to get married. Maybe probably obsessed with getting married. I've like picked my wedding dress from when I was like 6. I'm one of those girls that's like, I want to get married. I remember it so clearly. It was a Saturday night and we were at mine and my friend was on Tinder, and I'd take her phone and be swiping on people. And it was like a game. We'd swipe up and I'd swipe on people that like I knew she wouldn't be interested in. Like, we were just like messing around. I was not speaking to anybody. Like, there was no like love interest whatsoever. And I thought, you know what? I'm just gonna download Tinder. And then that's when I matched with my ex-boyfriend. I remember his picture was very like, he looked a lot older, mature. He was wearing like nice clothes, and I think I mostly gave him my number, and then it went from there. Early relationship, it was fun. It was very materialistic, so it was very nice restaurants, expensive nights out. At the time, I was absolutely loving it, I'm not gonna lie. I'd never been treated like that in my whole entire life, ever. And I remember like the first bill we had was like, I think it was like £200 a day, and I was like blown over. I was like, oh my God, like you're spending that on me. He told me he loved me after like the 2nd or 3rd time of meeting him. And I said it back, but I don't know whether it's because I was quite young, I really wanted to be in love, but wasn't actually in love, or I felt under pressure. I don't remember how I felt at the time, but I said it back. He was my boyfriend within like 2-3 weeks. And I remember at the time, my friends were like, it's going very quick. The early stages in the relationship were 1000% love bombing. Like, there's no question about it. But I wouldn't have even been able to tell you what that word meant at that point. So to me, it was, I've met this man, he's obsessed with me, we're gonna get married, he loves me, and he's showing me a different way of life that I never thought I would be able to do. Like, I work in a restaurant at minimum wage. I felt lucky that he loved me. Well, I thought he loved me. We sort of started going a bit more downhill, I'd say around the 6-month mark. He'd made comments about the things I'd wear, but then it started getting a bit more, what I thought was more serious and more like in love. And for example, I remember I was in the car with my friend one time driving, and he rang, but we were in the middle of a conversation, so I didn't answer. And then he rang again and again. And then in the end, when I answered, he was just screaming, like, because I didn't answer the phone. And my friend afterwards was like, Mia, that's not normal. But I was like, oh no, like, I'd be angry if he didn't answer. I'd always defend it with, well, I'd be annoyed if he didn't answer. So I started, I think, mimicking his behaviour, if that makes sense. I remember I sent him a picture of my outfit, and he made a comment and was like, oh, I wouldn't really, if you were my girlfriend, I wouldn't really want you wearing that. And I was like, oh, like, do you not like it? And he was like, oh, it's just a bit like revealing. And then I remember I actually got changed and sent him a picture back, but he didn't tell me to do that, but it was just that sort of comment that I was like, oh, he doesn't like it. Like, oh, I'll just get changed. So I got changed. He would call me names. He would obviously swear a lot, like, but like in quite an aggressive way. So he'd call me like a slag. I think a slag was like the main one. That was like the biggest insult I'd say that he would say. There's so many ways that someone can be controlling. It wasn't just what I wore. It was obviously not answering the phone. It was wanting to go on my phone whenever he would say like, I want to look for your phone, and he'd go on my phone. He would like pay for things, or be like, if I was going somewhere, like give me money, but then if I wanted to go somewhere that he didn't want me to go, he wouldn't. And I've struggled for money at the time. I had nothing. Like, at this point, I'm going to nice places, he's buying me nice things. And so without him, I felt like I would have nothing. We're having nice drinks and we're staying in a nice hotel. Like, I was happy, but he never respected me. He never cared for me. He never looked after me. He was like the opposite to all of that. So even though at the time I thought that I was having the best time ever because, yeah, I was in a bar that I couldn't afford to take myself to, like I was with someone that was horrible. I was quite lucky in a sense that I didn't lose any friends, but I think I was quite distant from them. I sort of stopped replying in the group chat. I think because I didn't really have as much to say, and I think back that looking back, I obviously was struggling mentally, but I didn't realise it at the time. So I wasn't as happy. Like my friends would describe it like my sparkle was sort of going. So we met in the January, and then I remember it was my birthday in the September, and that's when things first went, when things first went wrong, but really the first controlling comment, it all went wrong. I went out for dinner and drinks with my friend, and we were in this bar, and he was picking me up from this bar, and it was in London, it was on the Thames, and it was where they have like the shot girls, so you could buy a shot from someone, and I was saying no, like I didn't want a shot, and this table of these like quite like corporate like lads were next to us, and they were like, I'll get one, like we'll have one with you, and we all did like a shot together, and we were all like just ended up talking to them. There were some girls there as well. I remember I felt on edge at the time anyway, because he said to me, like, even if a boy asks you where the toilet is, like you don't need to tell a boy where the toilet is, don't talk to anyone. So I remember thinking like, oh, this is not okay really that I'm talking to him. And we left the bar, me and my friend, and then he picked me up in the end from my friend's house. But in the car on the way back, I was on my phone, and I went on my private messages on Instagram, and one of the boys had messaged me like saying, oh, where did you guys go? And I swiped off really quickly because I knew that if he saw it, he'd go crazy. And he obviously saw what I did, so he went on my phone, saw it, and that was the first time he physically put his hands on me. Like he sort of just ragged me in the car, like as he was driving. We got back to his apartment, and we were going away the next day, and he said like, he was like making me message the boy weird things, like, oh, did we kiss? Like, did we flirt? I said, I want to go home. Like, I don't want to be here. And he said, well, if you're going to leave, like, you need to pay me the full price of what I've paid for your birthday. And I was like, I don't have that money. So in the end, I stayed. I woke up in the morning. I had like a birthday cake, flowers, a designer bag, all set up. He like lit the candle, and he was like, yeah, you can blow out the candle. I'm getting in the shower. Look at your presents, because then I'm taking them away, and you can have them back when you know how to behave. Those presents were conditional. He didn't get them for me because he wanted to treat me nice for my birthday. He got them for me because he wanted to, but then because I did something wrong, they were taken away like a naughty child.
Can you remember the moment that he like first put hands on you? How did you feel in that moment, Mia?
Because he would justify the reason he did it is because he loves me. I felt guilty. I knew it was wrong, and I knew I felt sad, but I also thought, well, obviously he's going to feel something bad that I've hidden my phone. Like, he's going to be suspicious. Like, I made him mad. At the time, I was like, yeah, that was wrong of me. I felt like I was in the wrong. During my relationship, there was 5 times that he put his hands like physically on me. The first 3 were, like, I can describe it as like ragging, like when we're arguing, like grabbing me. And it would leave like a mark, but like a mark that I would cover it up. I remember I had a bruise once here, and then we were going out, so I just like covered it with makeup. And I genuinely didn't think of it as being a massive deal at the time. I didn't think like I feared for my life. I didn't think like I was in danger. I just thought of it as he's angry, and it's just like a frustration. Another argument happened where I was now working in a hotel, and it was my Christmas party, and he was like, I don't want you going, because if you go and one of the boys tries on with you, you're gonna have to leave your job, and I don't wanna have to make you do that, and that's gonna be your fault for going, so don't you think it's just best you just don't go? Obviously me, being me, I was like, yeah, like I just won't go, so I didn't go. And it was just repeated arguments like that, getting worse and worse and worse. He actually broke up with me at that point, and at the time I was like, what on earth? Like, I can't believe it. Like, I haven't made enough effort. And yeah, I was really upset. I was really, really upset at the time. I remember one day I was just sat on my sofa, and I got a no caller ID call, and it was my ex. And I hadn't heard from him in like 6 weeks. And he was just basically, hello, like, basically I want to be fine with you. And I was just like taken back. But at this point, I feel like I'd healed quite quickly from the breakup. And I was just like, what on earth are you talking about? Like, you left me, you said you wanted to go off and do X, Y, and Z, like, why are you ringing me? And he was just like, no, like, I want to sort it out. Like, we're going to sort it out. At this point, I felt really strong, and I was like, no, like, I don't want to be with you. And he was like, what? I think he was so taken back that I said I didn't want to be with him. And I think I hung up in the end, and he kept ringing and ringing and ringing. So in the end, I answered and said, like, you need to leave me alone. Like, I'm seeing someone else. And he absolutely lost it. Like, he was just screaming. And then I remember that day he rang me that many times that I wanted to change my phone number. And then my buzzer went, and I looked on my camera, and it was him. he like grabbed me and like, pulled me around and got my house key. And then he ran up into my flat. And at this point, his friend from the car had seen that he'd done it because it was like glass on the side of the building. So he ran up after him. So I started calling the police because I was like panicking, like, what is he doing? Like, he's running up in my flat. So I ran up with him. And he basically, at this point, it wasn't even to get me back. He had brought my sofa. He'd replaced my sofa that I had because he didn't like the thought that any other boy had ever sat on it. So he brought me a brand new sofa. So at this point, I'm on the phone to the police and he sort of like grabbed me to get my phone out of my hand to hang up on the police. He went into my kitchen drawer, got a knife out and stabbed a hole in every cushion. So they were just like slits in all my sofa. And then, yeah, he was arrested. So after that, I was obviously shaken up because he'd come into my flat, but I just felt bad again still, because I thought if I hadn't told him that I was seeing someone, I'd just said, you know, yeah, I will always love you, and said whatever I needed to. He wouldn't have done that. So he was then arrested, and I thought, Jane, what, I'm just going to drop the charges. I don't want to have to go to court and fight in court for what? Like, I just don't want to do it. I kept hearing from him, and for quite a while I was like, don't call me. And then I sort of started slipping back into speaking to him, and then he started saying that he'd gone to counselling and stuff. So I was like, okay, fine. And I knew I didn't want to be back with him, but whatever it was really pulling on my heartstrings, I guess. And like I felt more drawn to seeing him, and then I basically agreed that I was going to go and see him. And then as the night went on, he started getting more and more annoyed about the boy that I'd been seeing after we'd broken up. And then I remember I was in his spare room and he came in, and he was really drunk at this point. And he was like, he just said to me, I just want you to swear on Marlia's life, my daughter's life, that you're never going to go back to this boy, even if me and you don't get back together. And I remember I said to him, like, I'm not doing that. I think at that point he just must have seen red, and he grabbed me and it just pushed me down to the floor. And I remember he was on top of me and he just had his hands on my neck, strangling me. And I don't remember how long it went on for, but I didn't pass out. And then I remember I got up and I was just like, what on earth? Like, speechless. And then he was just like, get up, you look a mess. So I was just like, I remember I just felt so like violated. Like, I just felt it was horrible. And then I was messaging my friend at the time, and I was just saying to her, like, he's done it again, like he's hurt me again. And she was like, what do you want me to do? And I said, and he kept taking my phone and giving me my phone back. So I was sending her voice notes at the time of like what he was saying. And I remember in the voice notes, he was like, he said, why are you crying? And I was just like, well, you've hurt me, you scare me. And he was just like, it's your fault. I said to my friend, I was like, I can't call the police myself. Like, can you call them? Like, I'm really scared. And I think about an hour, I can't remember how long it had been, but it felt about an hour. And I thought, they're not coming. Like, what am I actually going to do? Like, what if I die? Like, this is how, you never think it would ever happen to you until that happens. And I remember in the mirror, like my neck was so, you could see his fingerprints straight away on my neck. And I thought, like, what if he gets angry again? And what if I die? Like, what do I actually do? So I remember I just grabbed my bag and opened the door and I just ran. And then I ran, he lived on the 7th floor of like this tower block. And I just ran and ran down the stairs. And by the time he caught up with me, I remember he got, literally as he got hold of me, the police like ran in and got hold of him. And obviously I was like hysterically crying, and they told me to go behind this door, the door of like the stairwell, to wait. And as they were arresting him, he was crying, saying like, don't do this to me again. That knocked me worse than anything he had done, because I was like, I'm supposed to protect her, and now I feel like I'm not protecting her. I was so upset. I remember I was ringing my friend and I was just like, oh, what am I going to do? Like, this seems so serious. And that was just the biggest wake-up call, I think, hearing it from them, because it was to do with Marlia. It wasn't anything to do with me. And I thought, yeah, like, there's no way. I would never, from hearing from them, I thought, I'm never going to like drop the charges now. And then luckily he pleaded guilty in court, so I never had to go to court. They just rang me and let me know that he pleaded guilty, and then he was sentenced to a year in prison. And it's hard because it's like, I know he deserved it, but I just wanted him to go away. I just wanted him away from me. And I remember at the time, after it was quite soon after, it was a couple of weeks, I remember my friend saying to me, like, you should really like speak out about it. And I remember for ages I was like, no, like, I just don't want to speak about it. And then I can't remember what it was that made me really just change my mind, but one day I just thought, you know what, I'm going to. I find it very hard to talk about, as you can probably tell, but at the same time, like, my following is 96% women. If I helped one person by speaking out, which I feel like in a way might make me feel better as well. I never realised how many people go through it until that point, because all of a sudden it was just message after message after message of young girls, middle-aged girls, like older women, like so many people saying I'm going through this. Like I've never seen anything like it in my life. Like even now speaking about it, I just can't even find the words to, because it was like a bittersweet moment, I'd say, because a lot of the messages were saying how it's really helped them. But then I'd look at the message and think, how are so many women being treated like this?
From your experience, what are some of the red flags or signs that people should be aware of when it comes to coercive control and domestic abuse?
I'd say, obviously, controlling what you wear, who you speak to, where you go, going through your phone, especially, well, anytime going through your phone, I was about to say, especially when you're asleep, but going through your phone, monitoring who you're following, one of the main things. And I think with social media, it can be so amazing, but it's become so big now that especially in abusive relationships in the start, you can see everything. You know, you followed that person, or you are following that person, why are you following them? Even from years ago, that can be control, but people might not think is control. Something that's so important is love shouldn't hurt, and someone that loves you should never ever hurt you.
You mentioned earlier that you'd always been a really sparkly person and your sparkle was dimmed. Do you feel like some of that sparkle is back?
I feel like my sparkle is coming back, but maybe in a different way. I don't think I'll ever be the same person. You never are, no matter what someone goes through. I don't believe that you're always going to be the same person. You change, whether it's good or bad or negative that you go through or good. So I know that I'll never be that same sparkle, but I would definitely say that it is coming back. Yeah, I'd say I'm sparkly again.